Welcome to Winning the Game of Life. Known as Jungleman at the poker table, Dan Cates has gone from being the bag boy at McDonald's with no friends and a dead-end future to winning over $11 million in online poker, over $7 million in live tournaments, and is a World Series of Poker champion. He has found fame, fortune, been to incredible places all over the globe, and connected with some amazing people. It looks like Dan has won the game of life, but that is not the way he sees it. Dan sees winning as doing his part to help everyone in the world win. He knows he can't do it alone, though. He knows it's going to take a collective effort with anyone that wants to see the same thing. Join us each week as Dan starts the conversation to do just that. On the show, Dan will interview incredible individuals that have made the impossible possible. Those that have won the game of life, and those that want to help others win as well. Hit subscribe and follow Dan's journey on Instagram at @TheDanCates. Let's explore anyone and anything that can help make this world a better place, increasing the odds of us all winning the game of life. And now, here's your host, Dan Cates.
All right, what's up, guys? Today I've got a special guest who was former top 3 in StarCraft in the world at some point. Second professional video game player in StarCraft, second professional gamer, and now turned one of the top high stakes professional poker or professional tournament players, and he's also won quite a bit of money for me in fitness bets that I want to reclaim. ElkY, what's going on?
Hey Dan, very good to be here. How are you?
It's
it's my honor to be here for your podcast, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, it's an honor to have you. Tell us a bit about your gaming career, because I imagine in South Korea, especially, the competition's super fierce. I've heard some stories.
So tough. It's crazy tough actually. I always love to play video games actually, because the older brother is like 10 years older than me, and when I was 3 years old, he got a computer, and my sister didn't want to play with him, so he was like bashing on me for so many years, and it was pretty unfair, right? Because I had no chance to win for up to 10 years. And then when I always loved to play games, and then when internet came out and you were able to compete against players everywhere in the world, I just loved it so much. So after high school, I just decided that I wanted to give it a shot. I just realized that there are people like making a living of it in South Korea, and you had to be in South Korea at the time, and it was really tough, but it was something that I felt like I needed to take a shot, because it's a dream when you're like 18, and you can like make a living playing video games. It's like it's a dream life. So I just tried for a few years, and I went all in. I stopped studying. I just played video games and practiced probably 12, 14 hours a day, like
14 hours a day.
Yeah. That was just my life. I just loved it, and so I used to go to this internet cafe in Paris, and because we were sponsored and the internet was better, and because back then, if you had bad internet, it's harder to play, right? And now internet is pretty good everywhere, but so I used to go there, and I was just like sleep there, and sleep on the chair and play non-stop pretty much.
Must have given you a nickname or something, or no.
That was crazy. And sometimes actually we were sleeping. There was internet cafe, and we were sleeping on the chair because it was pretty comfortable. But one of the owner, he didn't want us to sleep on the chair, so we had to hide in the closet to sleep. And when we were two of us, it was not the most comfortable, thing. But these were crazy days, yeah. So eventually, I managed to qualify for some tournaments in South Korea, and then the producer of there, it was really big, right? So there was cable channels that are dedicated to StarCraft. So they wanted to invite me for the show. Actually, it kind of helps that I was a foreigner, because two things actually. So because it's kind of an exotic flavor from Korean. Mm-hmm. Also Korean, they like to show up foreigners because they show that they're the best in the world. Because if it's only Korean, mostly all the best in the world, they're Koreans, right? But sometimes they need to invite foreigners. So that was helpful. And I was the first big tournament I qualified, I managed to get second place. So I only lost to boxers. I'm sure you heard of Lim Yo-wan. He's
who?
Lim Yo-wan, his ID is a Slayer's boxer. He's playing poker now, actually.
Oh, really?
So I only lost to him, but back in the days, he basically like didn't lose to anybody for 2 years. So it was like
In
really
StarCraft.
in StarCraft, yeah. So
That's
it was
pretty
like a
intense.
crazy achievement. He was so famous back then, totally crazy that Koreans, they need to go to the military service
Yeah.
for like 26 months. And he really needed to go, but he was so popular that they actually made a special like StarCraft team for the Air Force. So he
What?
he joined the military, and they just made a special StarCraft team for him to still be able to compete, because otherwise there would have been like too much national uproar. So that was like
Oh, really?
really insane.
Wow,
Yeah.
how do you do that? I mean,
Yeah,
how do
yeah.
you get the whole nation?
StarCraft was totally crazy in Korea. Those were like really great days, and like even the popularity. Like I had no idea. Like one day I think a few months after we got in there was like a big event, and they asked us to play games for the pre-show, right, in the stadium, and there were 20,000 people, and we just after the event ended, we just went to take the subway home because it's usually faster because of traffic. So we went to take the subway home, and then some guys, they recognized us, and they basically like cornered us, and we had to sign autograph for like 2.5 hours, like for basically the 20,000 people who came to the stadium. That was really sick.
Wow.
Those were really great days.
So
Yeah.
funny for like a video game to attain superstar status through a video game.
Yeah, there was like a lot of factors for Korea to be the number one at the time. Like they didn't have that much. I think they didn't. It became so popular because internet was growing much faster there, and also like they didn't have much space, so people like became a cultural phenomenon because like everybody with their friends, they would just hang out in internet cafe instead of like go play like I don't know, like football or baseball or sports after like studying. They all hang out in internet cafe and they all play StarCraft. So it was like the most popular thing. Like when you go anywhere, like in a bar and you ask all the girls, they play StarCraft. Actually, they have a special race. They have their race. You tell them you play StarCraft, and they're like, oh yeah, there's like 3 races, right? There's like Terran, Protoss, and Zerg, and everybody knows about it, and everybody played it, and it was really crazy. Yeah.
It's so funny. Who would thought that would be the topic to talk about with
And
girls?
it's totally crazy too, because when you go back to Europe, sometimes I would go back to Europe and people ask me what I'm doing. And back in the early 2000s, they're like, I am a professional like video game player, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, this doesn't exist. Nowadays, it's much more common, right? There are a few of them, but 20 years ago, it was just like.
Yeah, it sounds very tough. I understood there were like proper boot camps that you had to compete with. Like you had to compete with actual schools, like the equivalent of military schools, but there were StarCraft schools.
Yeah, there was like basically like the team, so it was really professional, and there had teams where like most of the people, we got lucky because we were able to like live in an apartment and go to the practice center every day. But so most of the Korean teams, they had to live in the practice center, so they live in the office. There's like maybe like 10, 12 people living there, and they practice like all the time. And Korean society, they're like basically if somebody is like older than you or ranked higher than you, you kind of have to like do as they dictate. So some of the older pro gamers, if they want to practice for a specific game, they just ask the practice partner. They can wake them up at like 2 or 3 a.m. and tell him like, hey, you need to practice with me until I don't want to practice with you anymore. And they're just like,
Wow.
It can be pretty rough. Like it's extremely competitive society. Yeah, but
So
we
how-
loved it at the time, so it doesn't feel like a struggle because we just loved it so much.
So how did you manage to compete with them? Like, was there anything that set you apart between the people that were like? I guess if someone's forced to play, they're generally not going to do as well as the person who really wants to play for the same amount of time.
Yeah, I think they all want to play, but sometimes they're forced to play a specific, like the games. There's like matchups. There's matchups and special maps. So when in advance some of the schedule, they say I know next week I will play against this player on this map, so I know which matchup and which map. So I need to practice like pretty specific. And I think I was always good at adapting. I was never the fastest with the keyboard and mouse, but I was pretty creative and good at adapting to my opponent and design specific strategies to beat them. I was good at preparing, I guess, which is really important skill for this high stakes game, because if you just play like a random player on a random map, was obviously still really good, but not as good as preparing against specific opponents.
Oh, really? Okay. Then did you use any of that for poker? Because
And also, actually, what was good about is ability to handle pressure and be good under pressure. And it's this crazy skill, actually. I didn't even know it was a skill back then, but like when I go to compete and you're in a stadium and there's like 20,000 people, there's so much pressure at stake. And a lot of the Koreans they actually choke pretty hard. Like some of the guys, let's say we
Really?
play in practice games, maybe they win 60% of the game against me in practice, but on TV they win like 20% because they just lose all their capabilities. And like I think it helped a lot with poker as well, because staying calm and focused and being able to handle pressure is really like an important skill set. Right?
Who would have
It's
thought?
it's not only how great is your A game, it's like how long can you play it and how long can you play it under difficult circumstances. And I think that's something you're really good at as well, right?
Apparently, I didn't realize it was that much of like a thing. I thought it was something you could just practice and it goes away over time. I mean, at least for me, like I've played like countless hours of poker, and you have too, and like I don't know, I don't even focus so much about like being on TV. Like it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
even the same as being in front of like less people that are watching, but they're like right in front of you, which is really nerve wracking. By the way, I don't know if you've ever done that, if you've ever played in front of like a large audience.
Yeah, I played in a stadium where and it was really tough too, because most of the time I played against Koreans, and Koreans, if I played against like a boxer, for example, like every time I make a slight mistake or he does something good, they're all cheering for him. So every time you
That's
make,
so annoying.
so it's like 20,000 people, and every time you make a slight mistake, they're all cheering against you, and it's like it can be really tough. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I will say that it was annoying when the other team would like cheer for the other guy for like some stupid thing when I was playing in front of in the, I don't know what it's called, like the battle zone or whatever it's called of poker for the tournaments. So I
That
can
was
only
for
imagine.
the WSOP, the 50K
Yeah.
championship.
Yeah. But for yours, I imagine it's way more annoying, especially if you have to play fast.
Yeah, it's really crazy because it's real time strategy, right? So if you just skip like a few seconds, you're like way behind, because like there was these things that are called like action per minute, and the top Koreans, they were now they're like at 400. Back at my peak, I was probably at like 240. It's like the click per mouse and keyboard per minute. So
But-
if you miss it means like four action per second average. But there's peak time when you're fighting, when you do more, right? So
Yeah.
it's extremely important to be fast, and that's one of the important skill set as well. That's why like a lot of the Korean pro gamers, they retire they can retire at like 26 or 27 because their wrist hurt. It's kind of sick actually.
Yeah. You can get carpal tunnel or whatever. Were you able to compete even though you were you competing or winning against a lot of people that, or with high frequency against people who were clicking at 400 actions per
Yeah, you can still compete and win. I mean, there's also different races which require higher. My race was not requiring as high, but basically, if you if you have a much better strategy, you don't need like it's after you reach a specific amount and high amount already, like you can implement most of the strategies, right? And the higher the higher APM between 100 to 200, for example, is a huge gap. But between 200 to 400 to 300 or 400, it's not as much of a gap, because you can how do you say it? You can basically play your strategy as you want. It doesn't stop you from most of the things that your strategy does want to do. So it's so I was still able to compete. Yeah, fortunately,
Okay.
I think they made it better for StarCraft 2. Actually, StarCraft 1 was really rough because it's a really old game, right? So a lot of the process, they're not automated, so you have to do everything manually.
Oh,
And
jeez.
a lot of these, they are not like really a strategic action. It's just like upkeep, sending workers to minerals and
That's too
basic
annoying.
things like producing units and things like this. Yeah, it's rough.
Well, how did you switch from that to poker? It seems like quite a big switch. I have a few thoughts. First one is the pressure for poker seems like it's not nearly as rough, except that now there's real money on the line and you don't know what the other person has. It seems like quite a different game, but it's also way slower.
Yeah, it's way slower, but actually it's not that different, because StarCraft is also a game of, I don't know if you ever played, but it's also a game of incomplete information, because you have your units and your building, and basically you only see whatever, there's a map and there's a fog of war, so you never see and the entirety of what your opponent is doing, except like the very, very beginning of the game when you scout, so you kind of have to extrapolate. And there's also a lot of mind games, because you don't know, from what you see, you have to extrapolate what is most likely strategy is going to be, and then you can be ready to react whatever it does. And it's a little bit like poker, right? Whenever you never see what your opponent's hand, but you see his betting patterns and what he likes to do in general, how he likes to play hands, and depending of the line that he takes, you can just narrow down his range of hands. And in StarCraft, it's a bit similar. Like there's different build orders that you can use, and when you scout your opponent and you see he's doing something, you can narrow down because you can narrow down the tech path that he's gonna take, and the unit combination. Basically, it's about expansion and resource management and a unit combination that the army that is gonna build, right? And
Sure, I could
some of
see.
the time, it's not, you cannot switch from one army to the other. It takes time because you can see the building and the tech path, and so you can anticipate it by scouting, and that's a really important skill to be adapting to your opponent and be ready for whatever is doing.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this actually. Poker is really more fundamentally about adapting than even playing optimally. Optimization of poker actually comes from both sides adapting to each other, and then it reaches this conclusion of sorts.
For sure.
If that makes sense. But I did play StarCraft actually. I played Command and Conquer a lot, and I never thought of it that way. I guess these games are actually games of incomplete information. Would you say it helped you a lot with how to learn how to play poker? Because I would think I could see some similarity also in you kind of have to protect your resources and things like that in poker, or you have to protect parts of your range. I guess you could call that similar to protecting your resources.
It did help me a lot with basically the thought pattern, and then just thinking in how do you call it, in trees, let's say if my opponent does it in StarCraft, he's gonna be able to do this or that, and I'm gonna adapt. I'm gonna try to be one step ahead of him, and it's kind of the same in poker. Sometimes it's people feel like they're thinking they don't think the law of the regular players. They just think they see their hand now. Nowadays, obviously everybody's much better, but when I started playing poker, they just see their hand, the flop, and they just make a decision, and they don't really have a plan for the hand, depending on which turn they're gonna barrel on, which river they're gonna how they're gonna play the hand, depending of the possible cards that will come out, right? I mean, now the game has changed a lot, and everybody is so much better, and so much better, especially as theory. But back in the days, I think that's what helped me a lot when I started playing poker, the adaptability aspect, and it was that was way more important. That nobody knew what theory, even the good theory was at the time, right?
Yeah.
So there was adaptability, and in StarCraft is also super important. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I have a couple other questions. So were there a bunch of StarCraft players that tried poker? Or did they have much success, or were you more of the exception to that rule?
Yeah, a lot of them, they played poker and they became pretty successful. Actually, we all kind of started together at a similar time, because StarCraft was so difficult and so competitive. There could only be maybe 20, 30 people in the world who can make a living of it. So when you have this skill and they translate to poker, and poker back in the days, I started in late 2003. It was just I had no idea what I was doing, and I was still winning. So when you have those work ethics from StarCraft, and you can put in a lot of hours, and also what helped a lot is that the hand-eye coordination in StarCraft enables me to play a lot of tables really fast, so you can get a lot of experience, a lot of skill just by playing more tables. You can play 10, 20 tables, and you see so many situations incoming, and you get so much experience that it's really hard to match. If you play live poker and you play 30 hands an hour, you will have to play probably 40 times more, right, to get the same amount of experience. So it's if you play 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day, you get so much experience for that, and I think it helps a lot of StarCraft players. So a lot of them, they became really successful poker players, actually, because because it was also a career path. It makes a lot more sense, because StarCraft was so difficult, and it's so tough to make a living out of it. And at the time, you also had to live in Korea, so a lot of them, they kind of
it's a bunch of
So a lot of them, they were I'm able to stay at home in the US. I can make so much more money playing poker. Basically, poker, you just have to find players which are worse than you. Well, in StarCraft, you have to be the best in the world to really make money and be a professional, right? I think it's the same in most of the sport and competition.
Yeah. That's extremely difficult to make money as a top athlete or top competitor in all sorts of fields, in chess and I know you have to be top 100 in tennis, and God knows what you have to be in basketball. You have to also be 6'4" at least, and whatever else. But yeah, I mean, poker's unique in that many people, like you don't exactly have to be, or a lot of people can theoretically make money if the pool is wide enough anyway. From poker, they can make like decent money. They don't. It's much more like distributed.
The thing that was rough was the variance actually, because back in StarCraft, like when you lose, like there's a little bit amount of variance, but not much. Like if I'm much better than the other opponent, maybe I win 80% of the time. But in poker, the variance is so high, and the beginning is kind of frustrating when you play well and then you get all in, and then you feel like, oh, why did I lose? You feel like
but it builds resilience.
Yeah,
though.
it did build resilience. It helped me a lot actually, and it helps like mentally because before, like I can feel a little bit entitled, but playing so many hours of poker, it helps you with like life resilience and like knowing that nothing is really fair in life, right? We are really lucky spot anyways, but we shouldn't be entitled to anything. Or when in StarCraft, it's like if you lose, it's pretty much your fault. You could always find a way to get better, and you don't really have to blame anyone. And in poker, it's like it's also you have to be pretty honest with yourself. Sometimes it's so easy to say that you lose and you're just unlucky. It might be true, but then that's not how you improve, right? So it teaches really good life skills, I think, poker.
Oh, I think in poker, it's harder to be honest with yourselves. When it's StarCraft,
it's hard. StarCraft. That's why people can't play in StarCraft tournaments, right? Because if we play StarCraft and I beat you like 10 times in a row, then you're gonna stop betting. You're gonna realize that you can't win, and then you're gonna stop betting. Whereas in poker, it's like once in a while you get lucky and you win. And when you win, you think you're good. You think you're the best, and when you lose, you're unlucky. And it's hard to see the truth, especially because you don't need to play nearly enough hands, and you need to have like modelization. A lot of the time it's true that when you win, you played good in some hands, and when you lose, you usually kind of unlucky. But then there's much more to it than that. But just conceptualizing the situation it can be difficult for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do personally suspect that poker is a really good tool to discover the truth, because like if you can't, you're gonna lose money for sure. Like if you can't act on it, at least.
But it can take a long time to find the truth. That's what I'm saying. In StarCraft, the truth is pretty obvious. When you're getting crushed 10 times in a row, it's like fuck, I have no chance to win. Like some of the time, you really have no fucking chance to win if somebody is much better than you, right?
Yeah.
Like if we play now against the top pros, we will never win one in 100 games ever. But we know after a few games, you're just gonna realize that you're throwing dead. It's like, but in poker, it can take a lot longer time to actually realize the truth. And if you're not really honest with yourself, and there's like a lot of different factors, it's easy to get blinded. So it's a really good life tool, I think, poker as well.
Yeah. I have some ideas with that, but we'll put those to the side. So I find it to be a good sign, actually, that there are plenty of StarCraft players that transferred their skills from StarCraft to poker. I understand you're a bit of an outlier in that you're very successful at both, but it's promising because it suggests that, it suggests firstly that a kind of a unique group of people can actually win at poker, whereas like previously, there's in life previous to like this current age. A lot of people with like nerdy kind of skills, like to be good at video games and stuff like that, they had limited options, let's put it that way. But now things have been changing really rapidly, and they can. And not only that, but some of the skills are transferable from StarCraft to poker. So that's really good too. Or it suggests that. It's not proven. Also as a Command and Conquer player, a few different of my friends did succeed at poker. It wasn't like that common, but it was like a pretty competitive, real-time strategy game. And I can think of at least one other person that became professional two other people at least, but it wasn't like super common. Yeah, so it's promising that certain skills are transferable. I guess it's kind of implied through a lot of people going from like even from other sports. Well, poker's a game, but like soccer to like I don't know, something else, tennis to soccer, like things like that. There's a decent amount of like those examples. But anyway,
yeah, I think anything that's really competitive and that make people like people who love competition, they really enjoy poker because it's extremely competitive, and you really have to bring out the best version of yourself. Whenever you're out there playing poker, you can't just like. But the beauty about it too is like, it's great for people who are really competitive, but it's also great just to have fun with some friends and gamble and like. You can't. We have to be honest, and then like most of the players who play poker, they can play just for fun, right? It's like if you have like especially nowadays, it's extremely tough, and like it's great to play poker for fun, but you should not expect to just like quit your job and play poker and make a living. It's really really difficult as well.
Yeah. It that is true. It requires a bit of how do you say it? It requires a lot of freedom, and you have to like get to the point where you start making like real money. So tell me, are there any other of your skills from gaming transferable to poker, and how did you get used to like playing a lot slower?
Playing slower was tough at the beginning. When I first played the live events, it was like really, really difficult. I was like, "What am I doing here? Like, I'm playing like 20 hands an hour." Because I started online, right, and then I played live events, and I was like, "Oh, I'm playing 20 hands an hour." It looks unoptimized. I don't even know how much the stack is. When you play online, you have all the stack. The first time I played live, I was like, oh, I don't even know how much this guy has and how much is in the pot. Everything takes forever. What am I doing? But then I love the competition so much, and there's something about the live event, like about I don't know, like playing live that's different, like winning the chips and the atmosphere and the social thing, which I enjoyed a lot.
It's
And
more
running deep in a tournament, like there's this kind of pressure in the atmosphere, and it's really exciting. So I loved it so much that I was able to adapt. Yeah.
uh, seemed like your love of the game pushed through like the difficulty of adjusting to the slow pacedness of the game,
Yeah.
and it sounded like you also learned to enjoy certain aspects of live poker that are more feeling oriented. I would
Yeah.
say, like
Yeah.
such as the feeling you get to be on the final table and there's all this like stuff going
It's
on.
pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting actually. It's pretty different, right? How about you? You also started playing online, right?
Um, I did, yeah, and it was really a challenge for me to get used to the slow
How many
aspect of
years?
it.
How many years did you play online before you made the transition to playing more live, or did you kind of start like playing online and quickly playing live and a mix of both? Or
I think 1 or 2 years, something like that, because Black Friday happened maybe like 2 to 3 before, and then Black Friday happened, and I had to play in Las Vegas in the casinos. I had to like figure out like proper ring ranges and stuff like that. Um, yeah, it took me a
how did you
minute.
adapt? How did you adapt to it? What helped you like adapt? Like maybe because some of the audience they're also playing a lot of online, and like adapting live is not always easy, right?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, knowing the ranges to play helped me a lot, but everyone's different because some people get really bored in their disciplined caves a bit. I'm a little different because uh, maybe you would be a better example, but I'll explain for me. I'm a little different because if I know what the answer is, then typically, at least in poker and at least for money, I just like can't really justify doing something bad. If it's like on the cusp, it's like super close, then yeah, I'll be like, whatever, I'll play looser. But it'll be like a pip difference, and then a lot of the preflop ranges are pretty close anyway. So maybe I'll like err a little bit on the loose side, like really barely. And it kind of depends. Like sometimes I'll give action, but I have to like make the choice to do it. I work a little differently. How about you? How do you get used to adapting to live?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, that was just like the willingness to compete, especially because I played more like tournaments and basically like back in the days and even now. I mean, the biggest live tournaments they're kind of online, kind of live. Sorry, like back then, like the WSOP main event when I started playing, I think one of the biggest tournament online they were like $500 buy-in, right? And you can play live for like 10,000. So it's just so much more at stake that I felt like I
Oh,
have
maybe it was
to.
the
If
money.
you want to, it's like the money, but it's also like the competition. Like the best players, they're always gonna, like when I started, my idols they were like Negreanu and Ivy and all these guys. They didn't even play. They didn't even play online. Online, it was kind of like. Remember when we came up and all these guys they were saying like, oh yeah, these like online pros they don't really know how to play the game of poker. But now it's kind of the now it's kind of the opposite. It's like those live pros. But when I started coming up live, like people they had this like bias towards online player because they thought online was not really like true poker. But
Yeah, I've seen
this
that.
bias
Yeah.
it kind of made sense because the biggest everything. I mean tournaments, the biggest MTTs, but also the biggest cash games they were like live, right? So if you want to
Sure.
compete against the best, that's kind of what helped me. Like I wanted to compete against the best and play the biggest tournament, and it was all live at the time. So that's what really helped me to make the transition. I'm like,
Sure.
if I love this game so much and I want to compete with the best, I have no choice. I have to play live, so I have to adapt, right?
I guess it's just deciding what you want in some kind of way seems to be really key. Maybe mapping out like the different pathways of one's life might be helpful for the people to decide because you could say like, okay, if I'm gonna play live, I gotta like deal with this, and I've got to like make sure I don't play too many hands because it's slow as shit. But or I could just keep playing online and play fast and have my luxury or whatever. Also, I mean, this is just a hypothetical possibility to help some
I
people.
mean, like there's like some players who like pretty much never play live, right?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. There's all sorts of people. Yeah, is there anything specific that you did to make sure to keep yourself disciplined, or to make sure you didn't give off tells or pick up tells? Anything specific?
Actually, not that much. Maybe I'll give up tells. I was never that good at reading tells. I mean, I'm just love it is pretty subconscious, like just being there, and like it's more like I try to be present and being focusing on what's the action going on, and try to be calm. But I never really did anything specific. But I never had a problem with like discipline because I was able to handle pressure well, and I knew I wanted to win. And as you said, when you know what the right move is, and when you want to win, you cannot really justify like doing something that's like out of this like too far away from the right move if you want to win. Like otherwise you just want to gamble and go play some casino games, which is really fun too. But I mean, like,
or possibly if your discipline can cave in a different kind of way for the sake of pleasure. As we've found out, at least as I found out, I've struggled with that one specifically. But we'll get to that in a second. In what other ways did gaming or poker help you in other areas of your life, or did it?
Poker helped a lot because I think one of the most, I mean, the fact that it humbled me a little bit, when you're young and successful, you're kind of like, you're not always, you can be a little bit arrogant because I had everything pretty early, and then like knowing that even if this is basically like nothing, anything can happen at any moment, right? Knowing that at the poker table, and life is not especially fair, and you kind of have to deal with it. That helps a lot, and also.
I never thought of that. Yeah, I guess it does humble you in that kind of way.
Because you're not gonna win all the time, right? Like even if you're like the best in poker, you're not gonna win. Most of the tournament, you're actually gonna lose by far, right? Even if you're the best player in the world. So it humbled me, and also the fact about what helped a lot as well is just thinking in terms of process, and if I'm and not be result oriented. I think that's one of the big things, and that's a lot of people who don't play poker. They really struggle with it. They struggle. They struggle with the result. They're like, you should have done this. I'm like, I shouldn't have done this. It's like it doesn't matter what the result is, but it helps you like bring the calmness to your life too. Because I know that if I've done my best, there's some kind of variance in life as well. And if I've done my best, the outcome is not good. It gives you like more clarity to just question like, if you really did your best and if your thought process was well, and don't really bother about the outcome because it's not in your control. But in poker, it's just so clear, right? If you just play great and you get unlucky, it just happens and you cannot blame yourself.
Yeah. There's actually there's an important parallel I want to talk about in a second. But yeah, I do think that people really are very, very results oriented in life.
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy when you see them.
It's like shit. Like it's almost frustrating. There's all sorts of fields where people in investing and things like that, where people are super, super results oriented, like in investing in hedge funds and all sorts of businesses. I mean, there's some obvious ways. I think in a lot of social dynamics, it's really there a lot, which is incredibly frustrating. Although people tend to be a bit more friendly and open in certain social settings, but this is a different subject, and it's my own personal experience as someone who's struggled, particularly when I was younger, with social experience. I had to like break it down analytically. But I think there's a lot of confirmation bias going on
for sure,
within like friends groups and things like that, and life. And I think life has a shitload of variance, but that's also what makes it interesting, because as you can see with these games, these closed games, the more closed and solved the game is, the less the less clear the truth is, and there's more like exploration possible when the truth is not as clear there, if that makes sense. You kind of gave me this idea as we were talking about StarCraft and chess, because that's why poker is a game, is because the truth is hidden, and now there's there's all kinds of possible errors to make, and there's all kinds of possible routes to take as well. And in life, you just like I mean, there's infinite possibilities, really, if you think
Yeah,
about
life
it.
is so complex, and there's like the knowledge we can get is just like barely like explains anything which happens in life, right? So it's what makes it like super interesting and exciting. But I can relate with you. Sometimes it's tough when you have like no result oriented in your process, and you try to explain it to people, and they really it's hard to explain to them that it doesn't matter what happened, right? Because in poker that's true. If you make a decision, and who cares what the board or river is, but in life they get, I guess you also like a lot of these situations in life, they don't happen nearly as often enough, right? So when you make a big decision and then they get emotional towards it because they don't make big decisions so many times in life. So they're like, oh, I regret doing this. But if it was the best decision you made at the time, then there's no need to regret your decision. Just outcome is not in your control. And like poker helps a lot with that. And like, I mean, in life, eventually, like so many of the outcomes, they're not really in our control, I believe, right?
Yeah. And I want to touch on a couple things. It's totally true, and also there's one subtle thing about the this thing was. I mean, I'm still kind of trying to get used to it in life. Is this should have mentality? Is if you like make a play, say in poker, and you should have done something else, meaning it was a better play. It's really kind of it was like impossible to have made that play. Even knowing like the future version of yourself would say you should have done something else, if this makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Actually, I'm kind of thinking about a lot of it nowadays, like because I don't know what you thought about free will, but basically, like whenever you make an action at the time, it feels like you're responsible for the action, but you couldn't really have made it another way. So there's no point in just like arguing that you should have make it differently, right?
Well, yeah, and like the information that you had at the time and wherever your focus
Yeah.
was not really changeable. It's a subject in spirituality actually, and also as it turns out, both science and spirituality agree that the best course of action is actually to forgive yourself and not beat yourself up too much, even though there's a should have. Which
Yeah, of course. I mean, if also like if something changed in the past, it possibly couldn't have changed, but then we wouldn't be like everything would have changed, right? How do you call it? Like butterfly effect or something. If like something happened differently, we wouldn't be like talking here where we are today, right? Everything would have been different in the world. So the current state of the world that it is now, it just reflects everything which happened in the past. So you can't really like. There's no point to even like thinking about changing it because.
We were talking about this in another high stakes game the other day. I want to ask you about the fitness stuff.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so I know you fought MMA, had a couple of MMA challenges, which I think would have some relevance to poker, but also we had a
Actually,
fitness
MMA,
bet.
you know, it was crazy. That's the first time in life. I mean, I got wrecked and I was gonna lose anyways, probably. But actually, it was really bad under pressure. Like the physical, I don't know, the physical thing. It helped a lot. It's so different because when I was practicing and sparring, I was doing decent. Mm-hmm. And then when I was in the actual fight, I way underperformed my practice skill, right? And I was like really shocked because like in StarCraft, I was always like be able to compete next to close to my best level, and poker as well. But this physical thing, I don't know, it's just like something different. When you get hit and when you like feel like you're in physical danger, it's actually quite different, and it's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I've been like hit in the face before. I mean, it was like kind of stunning. I don't know if maybe there's a way to get over that. I don't know. It's just I remember it was a very different feeling.
Different feelings than getting bad beat on the river. It can be also stunning when you lose when you're just out of the tournament from like out of nowhere with like being like 90% chance to win. But it's very different when you get stunned like by a physical hit, right?
Yeah. But did any of the poker or gaming help with the fitness stuff with playing with MMA and also in our challenge, which I lost? It was kind of it was my careless mistake. I mean, this one was one of those should have things. I was.
But you couldn't do any different at the time. But yeah, that was super close anyway.
Yeah, we had a super close fitness match.
I think it helps. Like the mindset helps, but the mindset and the fact that the discipline that you need to be a good poker player and to be pretty much to be excelling at any kind of high level competition, any kind of sports or game. If you want to be like really high level, you need to have a lot of discipline, and you need to know it's about consistency, and you need to put a lot of hours, and that kind of mindset it helps with the fitness for sure, because you know it's about consistency. But some of the time it's still difficult, right? There's just so many different factors in social life, and you like to eat this kind of food as well. I like to eat this kind of food, and then like your friends are like, you want to meet your friends and spend time with your friend, and you go dinner, and the food is there in front of you, and you're like, yeah, you're like, fuck, I know I shouldn't do it, but one bite is not gonna kill me, and then it's like 10 bites later, and you gain 10 kilos. It's like it's pretty rough actually.
There's also some gray area ones, or ones that were like on the fringe, and I found out later, oh shit, they're not that healthy. Like those plantain chips from
also
Amazon.
I mean, like the information already, like nutrition science is pretty difficult. Like it's very unclear, right? Because there's so many confounding factors, and then you can't have like randomized control trials, and you can't just like have a group of people eating the same thing for 4 years and another group of people eating the same thing in their life for 4 years. You can't control what people do with their life for such a long period of time.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of
could
things
be different from you.
Yeah,
too.
There's a lot of things like. And also, like personally, you can have different enzymes and everything. So it's pretty complex. It's like super complex topic. So first, you can't even get the full knowledge. Like nobody really knows what's the best, because it depends of everybody, and it depends of confounding factors, right? Like some of these diet. Like if you do this diet, but then you work out, of course you're gonna feel so much better than if you do the same diet and don't work out, right? And sleep well, and like everything is kind of interconnected. So it's very difficult to know what even the truth and the knowledge is, and then like applying it is even harder. So it can be really difficult.
Yeah, I found nutrition science to be a little bit annoying, although I think a rough idea, and it varies a lot based on people's metabolism stuff. Like some people are actually really ripped. And they eat whatever they want.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, it can vary a lot. You should do. Actually, I was reading this David Sinclair book and his podcast, and he was mentioning these things that you can do, like those blood glucose monitor, for diabetic people. And he was saying that basically glucose is one of the high glucose in your blood is not good, but the food that spikes your blood glucose is different for everyone. So you should wear those glucose monitor and just try to eat one food and see how it affects your blood glucose level.
Well, that's actually a great idea.
And then it's like I'm gonna do it when I leave Las Vegas, I think.
Yeah,
so you can adapt. You can see like different food, how it affects your blood glucose level, because none of the food is really bad by itself. What's usually bad is just eating too much or too much of a combo or something, right? But I mean, you also need to eat food. So like the dosage is what's important, right? If you eat like a little bit of one food, even like if you eat spinach, or it can be toxic for you. If you eat too much of it, you can actually die.
Sure.
So it's like,
yeah. I may have to try that myself. Would you like to talk about our challenge that we had previously with the fitness stuff? It wasn't just nutrition, but it was actually primarily a fitness thing, but nutrition was a big part of it. We had 3 bets. One was to get under 12% body fat. We both had to do it, and we both failed.
Actually, you had 4 bets, right?
Wait.
4 bets.
Yeah, 4 bets. One was who could hold a plank the longest. What else?
Who can do the most push-up?
The most push-ups
without like touching the floor, or like.
Yeah, and who could do the most of an incline run? And because of our body. Because our bodies were a bit differently, that we had different kind of advantages on different ones.
Yeah, we tried to. I mean, I knew you had an advantage in push-ups, right?
Yeah.
I had a handicap, but even with the handicap, I was not even nearly close to beating you. How many did you do? Like you did 130? That's
170.
170. That's like super fucking impressive. I think I did like 52, and I had plus 15% handicap, so it was not even like.
Yeah.
Not even close. 170 is.
But I was like
fucking impressive. Yeah.
I was pulling out all this stuff. I was like on my side and.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, even not, you would have done like 140. It was not close. It was not close anyways, right? How many did you do without like starting to struggle? Like 120?
Like 70 or something, 80, and then I started. There was like some point when I was practicing. When it was as if I like couldn't stop. I could just like lean on my side or something, and then I'd be recovered, and I would just do some more. I forget what the number was until I had to start doing all that nonsense. But that really pushed me very far. I just like was able to keep going for a long time.
Wow, sick.
And then the plank was weird. We both seemed to come out of nowhere and do like 15 minutes plus. I think I figured out I had no chance at some point during the plank. when I was seeing you because I was just
I practiced a lot. Yeah, actually, I did like up to 20 minutes, and then I got kind of tired of it. I got kind of tired of it, but I could have done a little bit more. I did 20 minutes like in practice by myself, but
Oh.
when we have like, when we actually have the challenge, it's just so much more motivation. Because I think a lot of the plank is much more mental than physical. I mean, obviously you need to have some basic physical fitness, but it's a lot about mental. I think that's why we're both good at it, right? Because it's like not mental, and when we look at each other, that was pretty fun. That was pretty.
Oh yeah, we did the plank with
we
we're
did
both
a
facing
plank
each other.
and we were facing each other, and then we never want to give up, right? Like if we're facing each other and for a bet, and like you're gonna go so much longer than if you just do it at home by yourself, I think, right?
Yeah, we pushed each other much harder in competition than we all beat all of our scores, I think, when we were in competition rather than in person, and especially the incline run. That was the longest I ever held a plank was 17 minutes plus, and then the incline run.
How much do you plank? We need to do something again because now if I plank like 3 minutes, I'm dying actually. How about you? I need to train again. It's crazy how like your body adapts really fast, but then if you stop doing it, it also like de-adapts. I don't know how you call it, but you just like lose it pretty fast as well, right?
I don't think I'm sure I could hold it, but it wouldn't be fun. I wouldn't necessarily focus on it. I decided I wouldn't focus on like overall aesthetics and things like that, which is quite
it's kind of
complicated.
Plank is a pretty annoying exercise actually. It's like brutal because it's really repetitive and there
are more fun ways of doing the abs exercises as I discovered. And there's quite some strategy to building your body as well. But it's like a longer term strategy. I think that it can be gamified to some degree, but I'm like not that good at it. Like real like professional fitness models do it. But the last one that came really down to the wire was the incline run thing. That was the most tired I've ever been, I think, or one of the closest when I was racing against you in that incline run.
Yeah, we had to do 1 mile. So we had to do 1 mile at 6% incline, and then basically we started together at the same time, and then whoever finished the mile first won, right?
Yeah. I think we both ran close to a 6-minute incline mile, and let me tell you, a 6-minute incline mile is much tougher than a flat mile.
It's really fucking rough. I was dying really hard, and you started really fast, much faster than I thought, and I was like, feel like I had to keep up, and I had to start much faster than I planned on doing it too, because on the practice you can see your heart rate and have some kind of strategy for the mile to go as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. And I started so much faster than I had to, as though I was gonna die too.
I was dying towards the end, but what ended up happening was I was 0.2 I think 0.2 kilometers ahead for the last stretch, but I thought that mine was supposed to end at 1.6. Ours was supposed to end at 1.6, but we actually started at 0.1. We took like a walk through 0.1.
Because our trainer he set the treadmill so we can start at the same time that they're already running right.
And I forgot that we started at 0.1, so I was dying and I ended at 1.6.
Because it was like in kilometer thing, so it's like 1.6. So we had to do 1.7, but you thought it was 1.6. And that's how I won. I kind of sucked out. It was like super fucking close.
Yeah, and then ElkY won it for 2 bitcoins.
2 bitcoins were worth more at the time, but. But it was crazy too, because when we made the bet, we made the bets. I think the Bitcoin were pretty low. It was like 8K or something.
Yeah, it went to 8K, and then when we were actually competing, it was like
40K.
Yeah,
it was like 50K. I think. Yeah, because we took so long to set out everything. But
and it was 2 Bitcoin each for each bet. So we could have potentially, if you scooped,
we could have scooped 8 Bitcoin if you do everything.
It would have been really something if one of us scooped 8 Bitcoins. But yeah, there may be a competition in the future.
For sure, let's do it. I think, I understand that we should be healthy because it's much better for us, but sometimes we're kind of stupid, and if we don't have some kind of financial incentive, it's harder to do a lot of these things, right? It makes no sense because we should be smart enough to do it for our own good, but...
It does make sense. There's many parallels to the real world. Just the element of competition makes things is a much more compelling incentive than... be healthy.
Competition helps for sure. Yeah.
And now there's some attachment of glory to it if you win. And this is kind of how capitalism works, actually. This is the reason why capitalism works, is because people now compete. There's something to compete for. It's like capitalism is like largely a good thing for these reasons. It's just if there's some kind of way to align capitalism with altruistic things, I mean, that's a bigger subject, but that's...
competition, it brings the best of you for sure. It's very different setting. Like, you can see if you compete against each other, we're always gonna like go harder and push ourselves harder than if we just like just do it, right?
It's I don't know if it like, I mean, it makes sense in nature, but it feels like there's some kind of way to align the selfish interests and the altruistic interests. I mean, to do it in a bunch of real world situations is complicated, but at least for these purposes, to get healthy, we're like kind of strategizing against our own nature to benefit both of us. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the goal. That's definitely the goal. The goal is to just like have a common incentive for both of us. It's not even like to beat each other, but just to say like the next bet that we want to do is just basically something that we want to achieve, and then the goal is both to achieve it, right? It's not even like to beat each other, but to make sure we achieve our goal. And having some kind of competition and some kind of accountability in this bet is what's important and what's helping as well, because otherwise it can be hard. Like, you know, it's hard to delay instant gratification and eating something that you want to eat. For example, for me, it tastes good and it feels good, and like how you're gonna look in 6 months if you don't eat every day, it's just such a distant idea sometimes that it's just
that would be a good idea for like an app to like see if you don't have these foods, subtract them, and you're working out four to 5 times or 6 times or 7 times a week, and to change like little things. There must be like someone making an app like that. It's such a good idea.
When your mind is clear, it's kind of easy but when you're busy and when you're just like stressed for other situation, and there's just so many different factors, and your decision making, it kind of like not as good, right? If you didn't sleep as well, if you didn't like, I don't know, if you get stressed with other some stupid things, and you're more likely to not take the into consideration what would happen down the road, like a few months from now. A lot of time you don't really care. You just want to do something now, right? Like like delaying your desires can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not 100% bad though for a couple reasons, because it's not good to push oneself too hard in the short term. To push oneself too hard in the short term is not good. You want to push yourself a little bit hard, eat like continuously so that it's sustainable, that you can keep progressing. But like having some kind of extra incentive to not eat bad food, that's like reasonable, is very helpful. Or to work out or whatever. In fact, we also agreed to ascribe penalties to eating junk food each time.
After like two servings a week, right?
Well, that was what we mostly did. I believe I wanted 4 servings while I was gaining muscle. I was trying to gain, because that was the good thing about gaining, is that you don't need to. It's not as like what's the word? It's not as fragile.
It's not as restrictive as the diet, right? You can be a little bit more, as long as you have good protein intake. You can be a little bit looser with the total amount of calories and.
And it's, I mean, another thing is that it's not as fragile of a situation as like when you have to cut, because you can mess it up in all sorts of ways. But that was also another added incentive to like strategically incentivize us to become healthier.
Yeah, to become healthier and stay. I mean, it's all about consistency actually, right? That's why we need to do it like most of the time. Like, it's really about consistency a lot, as we saw. Like, you know, when we're practicing plank every day, like before the challenge, I was doing it for like 6 minutes, and it was like, I would barely struggle. And now, like, sometimes I do it 3-4 minutes. It's rough actually. When you're in your body, they really like change really fast. If you stop doing something and if you stop practicing it, you can lose it fairly fast. That's kind of the annoying thing about fitness actually, because if you learn a skill and you have a certain poker level and skills, you don't play for 6 months. I mean, everybody gets better, but you don't play for 6 months, you're probably really close to what the skill you had before, right? But if you have a certain fitness level and you do nothing for 6 months, you're gonna lose a lot of the fitness that you gain, right?
I think you can gain it back fast. I understand.
Gaining back fast, but still like takes some time. Like you can see, like the thing, that's why also those athletes, these athletes, as soon as they stop their careers, they like blow up and they get pretty out of shape and they get like much bigger, because the things, they keep the same diet, but instead of training like 6 or 8 hours a day, they train like a couple hours a day, and it makes a big difference.
Huh. Okay. Well, anything else you'd like to add, ElkY?
No, I'm good, Dan. So thank you so much for inviting me, and
Yeah.
that was a great show.
Oh.
And I'm looking forward to our bets, and we'll be posting. We will let people know that we will find some agreement and also like to be accountable. We will post it on like I think weekly on the social media or something like that, right?
All right. Yeah. We'll keep everyone updated on any other challenges or things like that. We'll do.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. And great for having. I mean, to be more clear, I'm happy to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Winning the Game of Life. Tune in next week for another great episode. Of course, hit subscribe and follow Dan on Instagram @TheDanCates.